Hello again, everyone. My name is Marty Guthmiller, CEO at Orange City Area Health System, joined by Lisa Berg, our Community Relations Director as well. It's been a while since we've done an Insights. Lots going on, and we'll maybe be able to explain that in just a little bit. Our intent today is to kind of give you an update of system happenings. Lisa is here today to kind of maybe drill down in some points that maybe the community might be wondering about, or simply to drill out or drill down on some current status. So Lisa, you want to kick things off?
Okay, I have questions.
That's good.
Starting off with, you have often referred to this past year or so as post-pandemic.
Yes.
You've talked to our staff many times about the healthcare landscape as we emerge, you've used that term a lot of times, from that unprecedented and challenging time dealing with COVID-19.
For sure.
What do you mean by post-pandemic and emerging?
Emerging.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to do the pastoral thing here a little bit and give you 3 words, okay? And the 3 words might not necessarily fit together that you normally think they would. The words are hope, trust, and volume. Okay, so it's a little bit different, but let me explain a little bit. I think generally hope. There's this societal, I feel, hope that we're returning to some degree of normality, that the new normal is beginning to emerge. And so I think there's hope in that. There's also the trust issue, or perhaps maybe better said, the lack of trust issue. Not necessarily with our specific providers, but generally medical providers in general, but as influenced perhaps by our society and our culture today. Governmental mistrust and things like that. I think there's a general void in the trust factor. And then volume question. And volume is again influenced by emerging from COVID, primarily because of the choice that some people have to make given the inflationary situation that we're in. And the choice is, do I put gas in the car, food on the table, or go to my elective healthcare procedure kind of thing? So I think those 3 things are all how we kind of try to navigate through the post-COVID culture.
Well, one quick thing I wanted to mention that had to do with hope that made me think of it when you said this. In May, we had like a record number of births for the month. So there was a lot of hope.
30.
Yeah. 30 babies born.
Right, but that is a good example. That does provide us with a degree of hope. It's like, okay, that's returning to normal. Now, normal is not 30 babies a month, but it was cool.
Yeah. Cool. So you talk about volumes, patient volumes. I mean, we hear that here a lot, but what do you mean by volumes, and why does it matter? What's that have to do with anything?
Yeah, and we'll talk about budget probably in a little bit too, and volumes are obviously very key for that. But I think it's important to maybe drill down on that, and because it might be a little different than people think. For example, during the pandemic, our oncology, and then subsequently post, our oncology volume basically dropped to almost nothing in terms of our ability for chemo and infusion therapy and that kind of thing, primarily because of the post-pandemic culture as it applied in the Sioux City market, which was beyond our control. And so Junie Nyland's inability to come here and provide specialty had a direct that's the context in which the volume was a little bit lower. Now, since then, we are back to 3 clinics a month. 2 from Sioux Falls, 1 from Sioux City, with the potential to go to a 4th. So we are emerging, and that volume question there is very much part of our budget process. Cardiology, another situation where there's some changes in our cardiology network, again, coming largely from Sioux Falls. That has now changed to 3 weeks a month, and and looks like it's going to be 4, and where we were having people that weren't being able to be served locally because of the inability for Sioux Falls to produce a cardiologist.
Mm-hmm.
And that also coincides with our echo testing that we have and our ability to do echoes internally now. And so that is a big thing. Really, so not volumes in terms of what you might think about, but those are volumes that are really a consequence of things outside of our control.
Okay. So have people changed a little bit the way they seek and access and navigate our healthcare services? And what do we do in response to that since things kind of changed during that year when everybody was shut down? And
yeah, we're trying to figure it out. I think, making it easier to schedule things, making it more services available, continuing to try to grow those. I don't think, and I don't have a strong sense that people are seeking care online that much, although you do read reports that WebMD is trusted more than your local doctor. Well, that's very dangerous kinds of stuff. So we're trying to make our services more accessible, easier to navigate the system, and trying to work through things that are a little bit more consumer friendly in a very complex medical environment.
So this morning, I know you had an early morning Board of Trustees meeting, and the board approved the fiscal 2024 budget.
Right.
Okay. Can you talk about what the budget process looks like for a healthcare system of our size and like why it matters anyway?
Sure. And how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Our budget, first of all, does matter. And this year will total about $95 million in terms of gross revenue. And before we get into the numbers part of it a little bit, it also must focus on values and culture, that we think that's really really important. It's a complex project process that probably is at least 8 to 10 weeks in the making. Probably has 40 to 50 different managers providing inputs, from the number of lab tests that we can expect to the number of meals served to the occupancy of Landsmere, IL, AL, and Prairie Ridge, and the case mix with those. What's our Medicare, Medicaid, commercial insurance, private pay? So those all come into play as we go through the process. It really begins with volumes. How many X-rays are we going to take? How many do we expect? And that's really been hard to really focus on that. Do we look at what the last 3 months has been like and extrapolate that, or do we look at the year in its totality? That really does include a pretty tough time there with inflation and people making choices and things like that. So we've tended to swing more towards recent months in projecting volumes, but that'll be a key, a real key to moving ahead with a budget that's sustainable. Without getting too complicated, we have in essence, two budgets. The first is an operating budget. How do you operate? What are the services that you do? Things like that. Our budget for FY24 is projected to be positive, which is not a given in today's culture. And it is projected to have positive cash flow. Positive cash flow is important because it also includes a capital budget. And a capital budget is important because that provides all the equipment and the things that we need to keep our services current, our equipment state of the art, to continue to update carpets and that kind of thing. And we have about $2.2 million in our capital budget for next year that is covered. All of these things are in an attempt to try to differentiate ourselves in the marketplace, to provide services that people want, need, and to try to grow those services as well.
What's the biggest slice of the pie in terms of the budget?
Yeah, um, staffing,
Yeah, payroll.
staffing, and benefits,
Payroll
of
and
course.
benefits.
So anywhere, most healthcare facilities are 58 to 62%, somewhere in there. Um, we're probably a little bit higher. We're probably closer to 62, primarily because of the wonderful IPERS benefit that we
Yeah.
provide. That is, it's expensive, but municipal facility, we're statutorily required to do that. But I tell you, I mean, folks that have been tapping into that IPERS retirement fund are really glad we have it. And I think that is really a leg up that we have in the market right now. And it's hard to think about retirement when you're 25 to 30 years old, but when you're 55 to 60, it means a lot. Yeah. And so 60+% of our budget is people.
Wow. So given all the things that we talked about at the beginning of this, with the challenges and kind of the uncertainties, unknown how things are going to look in healthcare or in consumer behaviors post-pandemic, whatever the new normal is, did that give new challenges, some different kinds of things when you guys were writing out the budget?
Yeah, I mean, it would have been real easy to kind of assume the proverbial fetal position and not move ahead with some things. And you know, we've for us older people, the Days of Thunder movie and the flooring it and going high concept is one that we've always endorsed here. And so, yeah, status quo is not in our DNA. We want to be forward thinking, and we have a number of examples that we can talk about that we are moving forward in. But it was definitely a challenge. There's no question about it. Staffing challenges will continue. How do you balance all of the things with paying as much as we can? You know, one of the things in our culture and our values that we have is we don't do a lot of signing bonuses for people, because we believe that, because those are for new people, not necessarily for the people that have been here for a long time. And so we like to put that money into salaries and benefits of existing staff members, and make the culture and value system such that it wants to attract new people to be part of our organization.
Okay, well, so given all of that, and you said we have a culture and a DNA that's forward thinking, can you talk about some ways that we've committed, and even with the budget, but even just with goals, into how to continue to differentiate ourselves or improve our continuum of care, generational care, what things are going on?
Yeah, you know, one of the greatest needs that we have is nursing home care.
Yeah.
And probably if we could do one thing, we should be building nursing home beds. But we can't staff. If we built them, we could not staff them. And so that's a choice that we did not make, or we made consciously. But how can we accommodate or adjust for that? And the notion was to try to maybe expand the time that one can spend at Landsmere Ridge in our independent and assisted living, and then have a new beginning of a continuum of senior care with Canal Heist, for 55 plus independent living. And so we will be investing about $10 million into Landsmere the next 25, which refers to the next 25 years at Landsmere, which is going to maybe blur the lines a little bit between IL and AL, give people more options, more choices. But it's going to be a really nice project, a new kitchen, a new community room, some things like that. So Landsmere the next 25 is a project. Canal Heist is another project. Now that project is not necessarily done by the health system, but it's done by our foundation. But again, a $10.3 million project that will be ready in November, with units to look at and see as early as August. So we'll be able to go out, look, tour, and we hope to occupy that building in November this year. I guess that's 2023, isn't it? Some new providers are coming. We've signed Brandon Vanderstoot that will join us in 2024. We're recruiting another physician as well for that same timeline. Both would do ER, OB, and family practice. So
Okay.
it's really encouraging to us that we continue to have young professionals seek to work and here, but also live in our community. That's really important. And then just various offerings that we'll be doing, and really with a focus on trying to increase our surgical offerings. We do think there's some things we can add in the future, and we're going to really look to do that.
Okay.
Other than that,
I wish we could take online questions, but we can't.
Yeah. All right. Well, send your questions in.
Yeah, send them in.
If you have some thoughts or questions, let us know. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah,
I appreciate
thanks, Marty.
that. And thank you for joining us today for this edition of Insights.